The dim glow of Jason Statham's phone screen illuminated his face as he read the message that had just appeared. "Stay out of this, or you'll regret it." His jaw clenched. Another threat. Another attempt to intimidate him. But Jason wasn't the kind of man to back down. A deep exhale left his lips as he locked his phone and slipped it into his pocket. He had seen these kinds of threats before, desperate warnings from desperate people. But this one felt different. There was something chilling about it. A gust of wind howled through the quiet parking lot as Jason pushed open the doors of his upscale apartment complex. It was late, well past midnight, but something in his gut told him not to ignore the uneasy feeling creeping up his spine. He stepped onto the pavement, his boots crunching against the gravel, his senses sharp. And then he saw it. His rental car, parked just a few feet away, was utterly destroyed. The windshield was shattered, deep spiderweb cracks running across the glass. The tires were slashed, rubber curling at the edges, exposing the metal beneath. Spray paint covered the side doors, crude words scribbled in thick red letters. "Get out!" Jason's expression hardened. He took slow, measured steps toward the car, surveying the damage. His fingers traced the slashed rubber of the tires, his mind already racing. This wasn't random vandalism. This was a message. A loud crack echoed through the night. Jason's instincts kicked in. He whipped around, eyes scanning the area. The parking lot was mostly empty, a few dimly lit cars in the distance. But someone was there. His gaze landed on a figure, a man dressed in dark clothing, standing near the building's edge. He wasn't moving, just watching. Jason narrowed his eyes. The figure shifted slightly, then, in an instant, turned and disappeared into the shadows. Jason took off running. His boots pounded against the pavement as he sprinted after the man, but by the time he rounded the corner, the space was empty. The alley behind the building stretched into the darkness. No footsteps, no movement. Whoever it was, they were gone. Jason stood still for a moment, his breathing controlled, his fists clenched. He wasn't just being watched, he was being hunted. His phone buzzed in his pocket again. He pulled it out expecting another text message, but this time it was a call from an unknown number. Jason hesitated for only a second before answering. "Who is this?" His voice was low, controlled. Silence. Then a deep, distorted voice came through. "You should have left this alone." The line went dead. Jason exhaled sharply, frustration simmering just beneath the surface. They weren't just threatening him, they were making their move. He turned back to the building, heading toward the front desk security station. If someone had been lurking around, the cameras would have caught them. The guard on duty, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, looked up as Jason approached. "I need the security footage for the last hour," Jason said firmly. The guard blinked, then shook his head. "Can't do that." Jason's patience was thin. "Why not?" The guard hesitated. "The system had a malfunction earlier today. Footage from the last 12 hours is missing." Jason's fingers curled into a fist. A coincidence. Not a chance. Someone had erased the security footage. Someone powerful. Jason didn't believe in fear. Not for himself. But this wasn't about him anymore. This was bigger than a personal grudge. The HOA wasn't just trying to scare him. They were trying to erase him. The smell of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air as Jason sat across from Marcus in the dimly lit diner. The place was quiet, aside from the occasional clatter of dishes and the low hum of conversation in the background. Jason had been here before, but this time it wasn't for a casual meal. It was for answers. Marcus exhaled sharply, stirring his coffee with slow, deliberate motions. His rough hands, calloused from years of hard labor, trembled slightly as he reached for the sugar packet. Jason noticed the exhaustion in his eyes, the kind of exhaustion that came from fighting a system designed to break you. "You were right about Roger," Marcus finally said, his voice low. "But he wasn't the real problem." Jason leaned forward, listening intently. Marcus continued, his eyes dark with years of suppressed frustration. Roger was just the face of it. The HOA, this whole damn organization, it's rotten to the core. They've been trying to push me out for years. Jason had already gathered bits and pieces of Marcus's story, but now he needed the full picture. How did it start? Marcus let out a bitter chuckle. Started small. First it was fines, stupid ones. Grass too long, $200 fine. Trash can left out a few minutes too late. Another fine, but it got worse. They started nitpicking every little thing. My porch light, too bright. My fence, 1 inch too high. He shook his head. They were looking for reasons to bleed me dry. Jason nodded. And when you didn't leave? Marcus's jaw tightened. They escalated, slashed my tires, broke my mailbox twice, left threatening letters in my yard. His fingers curled into a fist. Even had some of their goons call my job trying to get me fired. Jason's eyes darkened. You reported it? Marcus let out a humorless laugh. To who? The cops? They don't care. Said it was civil issues. Told me to take it up with the HOA. He shook his head. I ain't stupid, Jason. They wanted me gone 'cause I'm black. Jason sat back, the weight of the words settling between them. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. I worked my whole damn life for that house. Did everything right, paid my dues, raised my son there. His voice cracked slightly. And they still treated me like I didn't belong. Jason had heard stories like this before. Racism disguised as rules. Injustice hiding behind policies. But this wasn't just about Marcus anymore. Roger's gone, Jason said. So why are they still coming after you? Marcus scoffed. Because Roger wasn't the one running the show. Someone else was pulling the strings. Someone bigger. Jason's stomach clenched. He had a feeling this wasn't over. But now he knew for sure. The real fight was just beginning. Jason and Marcus sat in Jason's car, parked in an empty lot behind an old gas station. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows across the pavement. They were waiting for a man who had promised them answers. A former HOA employee had reached out to Marcus, claiming he had proof. Documents, emails, financial records, everything that would expose the corruption running through the HOA like a disease. Jason checked the time on his watch. He's late. Marcus shifted in his seat. You think it's a trap? Jason's jaw tightened. We'll know soon enough. A figure emerged from the darkness, moving cautiously toward them. He wore a hood, his face partially obscured. Jason tensed but kept his hands loose, ready for anything. The man glanced over his shoulder, then hurried to the passenger's side window. You Jason Statham? He asked in a hushed voice. Jason nodded. And you must be the guy with the files. The man, early 50s, unshaven, and looking over his shoulder every few seconds, nodded quickly. Name's Dennis. I used to handle HOA finances until I saw things I wasn't supposed to. His hands trembled as he pulled out a small USB drive. This has everything. Bank records, blackmail emails, illegal evictions. Roger was just their puppet. The real boss? You wouldn't believe who's... A sudden crash split the night air. Dennis's body jerked forward as if yanked by an invisible force. A bullet tore through his shoulder. Marcus shouted as Dennis collapsed against the car, blood spilling onto the pavement. Jason's instincts kicked in. He threw open the door, scanning the area. A masked man was sprinting toward a black SUV parked across the lot. Jason didn't hesitate. He took off, his legs pounding against the asphalt. He had to catch the guy. The attacker reached the SUV, yanking the door open. But Jason was faster. He lunged, grabbing the man by the jacket and slamming him against the vehicle. Ha ha ha! Who sent you? Jason growled. The masked man struggled, but Jason's grip was ironclad. Then the sound of screeching tires filled the air. Another car sped into the lot. Marcus yelled from behind, Jason, cops! Blue and red lights flashed violently. Jason turned his head. Too late. A fist collided with his jaw. The masked man slipped free just as multiple squad cars surrounded them. Hands up, now! Jason had been in enough bad situations to know when something wasn't right. The police weren't surprised to be here. They had been waiting. Get on the ground, an officer barked. Jason raised his hands slowly, his mind racing. This wasn't just about Roger. Someone bigger was making moves. Marcus, still holding his hands up near the car, locked eyes with Jason. He knew he couldn't help now. If he got caught, they'd both be buried. So Marcus did the only thing he could. He ran, ate, and as Jason was forced onto the pavement, cuffed and thrown into the back of a squad car, one thought ran through his mind. This was a setup, and Marcus was next. Jason sat in the dimly lit holding cell, his wrists aching from the too tight handcuffs. The cold metal bench beneath him felt as unforgiving as the corrupt system he was now up against. He had been in tough spots before, but this was different. This wasn't just about an HOA. This was bigger, more dangerous. A guard approached, unlocking the cell door. You got a call. Jason was led to a phone at the front desk. He dialed a number he rarely used, a direct line to Ethan Cole, one of the best lawyers money could buy. The kind of lawyer who didn't ask questions, just got things done. Ethan picked up immediately. Statham, heard you got yourself into a mess. Yeah, Jason muttered, and I need out. Fast. A low chuckle on the other end. Lucky for you, I owe you one. Sit tight. Jason exhaled slowly, his mind racing. Whoever set him up had serious connections. They got the cops to show up at the perfect time, with the perfect excuse. This wasn't random. Meanwhile, Marcus sat in his small home office, papers spread across the desk. If Jason was in trouble, that meant he was in trouble too. He had spent years dealing with the HOA's harassment, fines, threats, damage to his property. He had always known they were corrupt, but now he had proof that it was part of something much bigger. His hands trembled as he scrolled through an old HOA financial report, cross-referencing it with city records. There it was. The HOA had been funneling money into offshore accounts. But the real kicker, some of those transactions were linked to government officials. Marcus's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a corrupt HOA extorting homeowners. This was an organized operation. Money laundering, fraud, bribery. Before he could process it all, his laptop screen flickered. An email notification popped up. No sender, no subject. Just a single sentence. You don't know who you're dealing with. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. His pulse pounded in his ears. Someone was watching. He grabbed his phone, his fingers shaking as he texted Jason. We're in deep. Call me when you're out. Back at the station, Jason sat across from a smug detective. You made some powerful enemies, the officer said, leaning forward. Might be best if you let this one go. Jason's stare was ice cold. That a threat? The officer smirked. Just some advice. Before Jason could respond, the door opened. Ethan Cole strolled in, exuding confidence. Jason's ticket out. I assume you're done wasting my client's time? Ethan said smoothly. Because if not, I can have a judge on the phone in 2 minutes. The detective sighed, leaning back. Fine, he's free to go. But if I were you, Statham, I'd walk away. Jason stood, rubbing his wrists as Ethan let him out. As soon as they stepped outside, Jason spoke. I need to know who's behind this. Ethan lit a cigarette, exhaling slowly. You're already poking a bear, Statham. Maybe don't give it a reason to maul you. Jason's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. We're in deep. Call me when you're out. Jason clenched his jaw. Walking away wasn't an option. Not anymore. Jason sat at Marcus's dining table, his knuckles white as he scrolled through the financial documents Marcus had uncovered. Millions of dollars funneled through shell companies, offshore accounts, and political donations. This wasn't just an HOA scam. This was organized crime. Marcus tapped the screen. This right here, this money, it's going straight into the pockets of city officials. HOA's just the front. Jason clenched his jaw. We need to go public. Marcus hesitated. You sure about that? Once we do, there's no going back. Jason locked eyes with him. They already tried to frame me. They're coming after you next. We either expose them or let them destroy us. Marcus exhaled sharply. All right, let's do it. An hour later, Jason and Marcus went live. Jason sat in front of the camera, his voice steady, his gaze piercing. For years, this HOA has terrorized homeowners, especially black families. Fines, threats, vandalism. But it doesn't stop there. The money they collect, it's being funneled into illegal operations. Corrupt politicians, dirty cops, businessmen, all profiting while families suffer. Marcus pulled up the documents on screen. These files show where the money goes, who it benefits, and now you know too. Jason leaned in. They've tried to silence us, framed me, threatened Marcus. But we won't back down. The video uploaded. Within minutes it exploded. Thousands of views, then hundreds of thousands. Comments flooded in. This is insane. Someone needs to investigate this. HOA corruption is real. I've seen it firsthand. They're gonna come after you. Be careful. Jason refreshed the page. 1.2 million views. Marcus rubbed his temples. We did it, man. Boom! A loud explosion shook the house. Fire, smoke, glass shattering. Marcus stumbled back, coughing violently. Jason grabbed him, dragging him toward the back door. Flames engulfed the living room. The fire spread fast, too fast. Marcus gasped. My kid's room? Jason didn't hesitate. He covered his mouth with his sleeve and ran toward the hallway. He kicked open the door to the children's bedroom. Empty. They weren't home. Relief and panic hit him all at once. He sprinted back, grabbing Marcus's arm. We have to go, now! They crashed through the back door just as the fire consumed the entire house. Marcus collapsed onto the lawn, staring in shock as his home burned. His entire life, gone in minutes. Jason scanned the street. No fire trucks, no sirens, nothing. This wasn't an accident. Marcus coughed, still staring at the fire. They're trying to erase me. Jason's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Who is this? A disguised voice came through. They're coming for you next. Jason stiffened. Who? The cops. Some of them are working with the HOA. They know where you are. Jason's blood ran cold. How do you know? A pause, then, because I'm one of them. The call cut off. Jason turned to Marcus. We have to disappear, now. The air was thick with tension. Jason and Marcus sat in a dimly lit motel room, staring at the evidence sprawled across the table. Bank records, forged eviction notices, secret payouts to local officials. They finally knew who was behind it all. Jonathan Whitaker, a real estate tycoon, billionaire, owner of multiple development firms, and the true mastermind behind the corrupt HOA. He had pushed black families out of neighborhoods, buying up properties dirt cheap after the HOA harassed homeowners into selling. He had city officials and dirty cops in his pocket, keeping the operation running smoothly. Jason clenched his fists. It was never just about HOA corruption. This is a full-scale land grab. Marcus gritted his teeth. And that bastard burned my house down for exposing it. Jason's eyes darkened. Then let's finish what we started. Jason knew Whitaker wouldn't go down easily. He was rich, powerful, and protected. So Jason set a trap. A fake email was sent from one of Whitaker's own men. The message made it look like someone from the inside had turned on him, threatening to leak everything unless Whitaker met in person. The bait? A flash drive supposedly containing all the evidence. The location? A secluded warehouse, wired with hidden cameras. Now all they had to do was wait. That night, Jason and Marcus watched from the shadows as a convoy of black SUVs pulled up outside the warehouse. Jonathan Whitaker stepped out. Tall, silver-haired, arrogant, a man who had never faced consequences in his life. He walked inside, flanked by two massive bodyguards. His sharp blue eyes scanned the empty space. Where the hell is he? Jason stepped forward. Right here. Whitaker's head snapped toward him, A slow smirk spread across his face. "Ah, Jason Statham. You've been quite the nuisance." Jason's jaw tightened. "And you've been quite the coward," Whitaker chuckled. "You think you've won something? I own this city. I own the police. You really think some internet outrage is going to bring me down?" Jason pulled out his phone. "They're watching, you know." Whitaker frowned. "Who?" Jason turned the screen toward him. "A live stream. Millions of viewers. Watching everything." Whitaker's smirk faded. Jason took a step closer. "Your voice is being recorded. Your face is being broadcast. Your empire. It's collapsing in real time." Whitaker's bodyguards reached for their guns. Bang! A warning shot rang out. Marcus stood behind a crate, gun raised. Jason didn't flinch. "Tell me, Whitaker, how does it feel knowing the whole world is finally seeing you for what you are?" Whitaker's face twisted in rage. "You think I give a damn about public opinion? I'll walk out of here and nothing will change." Jason's phone buzzed. A text from an FBI agent. "We have enough. Moving in now." Jason smiled. "We'll see about that." Red and blue lights flashed outside. Dozens of FBI agents stormed in. "Federal agents, hands in the air!" Whitaker's bodyguards tried to run, but were tackled instantly. Whitaker stood frozen, his face pale. Agent Williams, the lead investigator, walked up to him. "Jonathan Whitaker, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, arson, and multiple counts of racketeering." Whitaker glared at Jason. "You son of a—" Agent Williams shoved him forward. "You can explain yourself in court." As Whitaker was led away in handcuffs, Marcus let out a shaky breath. Jason patted his shoulder. "It's over." Or was it? The cold night air carried an eerie silence as Jason and Marcus walked out of the warehouse. The flashing red and blue lights of the FBI vehicles reflected off the rain-soaked pavement. Whitaker was gone, arrested. The man who had terrorized black homeowners for years, who had burned down Marcus's home, who had bragged about his power, was finally in handcuffs. Marcus exhaled, his shoulders dropping. "I still can't believe it." Jason nodded, his eyes scanning the street. "It's a start." Marcus turned to him, frowning. "A start? The guy's finished." Jason's jaw tightened. People like him don't go down that easy. Later that night, they sat in a small diner, exhaustion setting in. Marcus's hands were still shaking as he held his coffee cup. "You did it, man," he said, looking up at Jason. "You took on one of the most powerful men in the city and won." Jason gave a small smile. "We did it." Marcus let out a bitter laugh. "You don't get it. I've been fighting this for years. I thought nobody cared." Jason leaned forward. "That's what they want you to think. But the world saw everything tonight. People care now." Marcus's smile faded. "Yeah, but what if it's not enough?" Jason didn't answer. Something in his gut told him it wasn't over. As they stepped outside, Jason's phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A deep, calm voice spoke on the other end. "You really think this ends here?" Jason's grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" A chuckle, cold, calculated. "You took down one man. You pissed off an entire system." Jason's eyes darkened. "Then I guess I'll have to take the whole system down." The voice paused, then, "Good luck staying alive long enough to try." The line went dead. Jason lowered the phone slowly. Marcus noticed his expression. "What's wrong?" Jason's muscles tensed. His instincts kicked in. He scanned the street. A black SUV sat parked across from the diner. The engine rumbled. The headlights flicked on. Jason grabbed Marcus's arm. "Get in the car! Now!" Marcus hesitated. "Jason, what?" The SUV peeled out, speeding straight toward them. Jason shoved Marcus out of the way as the SUV screeched past them, barely missing their legs. The driver's face was hidden behind tinted windows. The SUV didn't stop. It disappeared into the night. Marcus breathed heavily. "Tell me that was just a coincidence." Jason's face was unreadable. He looked down at his phone, replaying the last words of the caller in his head. Good luck staying alive long enough to try. He exhaled sharply. No, it wasn't.